What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to episode 116 of the Lumbar Trucking Show. Thank you all for being here. And before we get started, just want to let you know you can always listen to the Lumbar Trucking Show, syndicated on the Reads Across America iHeartRadio channel every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So always be on the lookout for that. And as you know, I am currently training for Ironman events in Waco as well as in the Woodlands, Texas, going on in April. Waco will be this fall, October. It'll be a 70.3, and then gearing up for the full Ironman Texas in the Woodlands in April of 2025. And all along the way, we're going to be raising money to honor America's veterans for Reads Across America and to be raising awareness of the driver health epidemic going on in this country. And I have a lot of great announcements to come in this endeavor, and I've been having amazing conversations with a lot of people who are on board with this mission. More to come on that. Don't want to spoil it, but let's get right into today's episode. Really happy to have this guest on. Somebody who dove in our Twitterverse on the Twitter Spaces and has been making waves. And I like to call her the Athena of logistics. This is a very wise woman, especially given her age and experience, and somebody who is, without a doubt, an innovative thinker, passionate about solving problems and helping people and elevating people, helping other people win. And that's one thing about this show and about what I like to do. I want everybody around me to win. I'm a coach for that reason. That's what I work in. And so I'm honored to bring a third generation of logistics innovator up onto the stage, Miss Danielle Chaffin. Want to get that right? What's happening?
Hi, thanks. Nothing. Wrapping up the week. I forgot today was Friday, so that's cool that it's Friday.
It's always a good feeling to forget that it's Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say. And I actually, Fridays have become some of my, even when I was still over the road and right into where I'm currently at, Fridays are some of my favorite days because they're not circumvented around getting massive groups of people together to figure out which bar they're going to go to. It's normally this now, having dope conversations with, some awesome friends I've been making over the past couple of years and just being able to hang out and learn and figure out how we can solve some problems. That's become the Friday nights, and I'm kind of a fan of it.
Yeah, I would much rather dive into deep conversation than I'm not good at small talk anyway. I'm pretty terrible at it. I don't like it. So the going out to the bars and talking to people around me has never been my thing.
Well, good. And that's why we're here. Let's dive right into it. I mean, just going off your LinkedIn profile, you have it up there. Third generation logistics kid. Tell us your story. Where are you from? What makes you a third generation logistics kid? How'd we walk us up right up to Friday, June 7th?
All right. I'll try to stay in order. My grandfather, my dad's dad, has been driving trucks since before I was born. I don't know the full story of it, how he got started, why he got started. I do know at some point early in his career, he was hauling fuel because his CB handle is Super Shell, and the Shell came because he was hauling fuel for Shell. So that was the first generation. Second generation would be my father. He started out as, I don't know what he did in the beginning. The red truck I have in my Twitter profile, my LinkedIn profile, had his own authority. He had a black truck after that, it was a Peterbilt. It had burnt from the inside out, and him and my grandfather rebuilt the entire thing. I need to get a picture of it. I remember that one, and I remember when he sold it. I was probably a young teenager. Anyway, he did that for a long time. When I was very, very young, and up until the age of 3, he hauled. I have a child. Hold on.
Oh, we have a special guest.
Yeah, that's me. Okay. Until I was 3, he hauled cattle. And when I was 3, he said that I called home from a truck stop, and it was the first time that I really talked to him on the phone. and I asked him when he was coming home and that I was sad that he was gone. After he got home from that trip, he never went back out over the road. So he worked with the rest of my family in like local construction business and drove a dump truck. Yeah, that's first and second generation.
You're bull hauler's daughter.
Yeah.
There's like there's quite literally there's another show out there. It's definitely worth your time. It's called Over the Road. Long Haul Paul, musician, good friend of people on the show, former guests, especially Gord McGill. He did a podcast called Over the Road, and one of the guests he has on is a bull hauler's daughter, and her story was a little bit different from yours. It kind of pulls at the heartstrings a little bit, him having that conversation and coming off from that. You said he had his own authority, so I mean, he clearly diverted from livestock and was like, I got to get back with Danielle.
Absolutely. One of his best friends, I called him my Uncle Dean. He was not like blood relation by any means. And I posted a picture not too long ago. I found it in one of our books. It was a picture of me as a very, very small child, a baby, and my Uncle Dean. And he had sent me a postcard from one of his trips. He was at Disney World or Disneyland, one of the two, and he sent one like it was from Mickey Mouse. And yeah, so he left doing that, came back home. After that, he's been pretty regional or local. He got into hauling dry bulk, fly ash, cement, ready mix stuff. Yeah, so he's helping build up a company called Piles out of Tennessee. They were acquired by SRM, and he moved from there, and now he's at TKM Group out of Southern Illinois, and he's building out their southeast divisions.
That's awesome, and he's still driving as well.
For the most part, he is doing the office work like dispatching, customers, sales. If he has enough drivers out or they call in, he is quick to jump in and drive. He probably drives at least once a week.
That's awesome. So yeah, it's good that you pan that out there, because a lot of things we talk about this on the show, and even, I mean, Jamie Hagan's come on here from Hellbent Express to talk about that. I mean, there's times where that's the thing, like when people think about the career path of somebody who's in trucking, like it doesn't require being in the seat for 30 years. Like you can be that. You don't necessarily need to be an owner operator or an entrepreneur. You can be what I kind of called like an intrapreneur, where you work with companies that, yeah, you might get back in the saddle and drive, but at the same time, because of your knowledge in the industry, you can also get in the office, hit the phones, have these conversations. But you spent X amount of time as an owner operator making those phone calls and connections. It easily correlates to being able to get out of the driver's seat and also help another company grow that doesn't have to be yours and is a little bit less headache. That's awesome.
Absolutely. I was thinking about that. Last week I was at Freight Waves in Atlanta, and we did a podcast with Chris, Indie Trucker. And I was listening to him speak, and he was out of the truck for a week or so. And I was thinking about him and how he could really use his knowledge and experience and take it outside of the truck if he ever decides he wants to do that.
He's got to be one of the most interesting guys out there. I consider him a very good friend. I mean, I've slept at his house, and gone up on the ridge, and I'm honored to have done that. For anybody who's listening, definitely, if you got Twitter or if you're on LinkedIn, look up Chris Thomas or at Indie Trucker on Twitter. He right there could be one of the smartest owner operators out there. And my God, this guy, when we were at F3, he talked to every single vendor, had a conversation with every single one of them, does not hold back with telling you what he supports, what he doesn't support, what he finds interesting, where he thinks that where they're probably wrong, and like doesn't hold back in that. And in an industry where people are kind of like sometimes stepping on eggshells, looking to impress or stuff like that, it takes the gall of a truck driver to sometimes be like, nah, I don't think that's going to work for you. And
absolutely. I love it.
He's going to make waves, and like the best years of his career, I think, are without a doubt ahead of him. Now, is your grandfather still driving? You kind of made it seem as though he's still at it.
He would. He would. He retired at 77, and he still has his truck, still has his trailer, but he's not driving anymore.
Okay, yeah, tell him not to let it go because you really never know. Especially, you never know if something hits the fan, he might need that truck to go save the world.
Yeah.
But, hey, we got a special guest. We're all about family on this show. We gotta get special guests.
Get your water out?
And the bathroom.
We'll go get it.
No,
Okay, get your brother to help you, please. Go tell Bubby to help you.
Well, if they need water, water is really important. We're big pro hydration here.
Absolutely. We have a refrigerator that will give him water.
Yes, summer's coming for all you guys listening out there. If you're not staying hydrated, especially you drivers, take this as a note. You got to be drinking water now, at least 2 liters or more a day. That's what we got. But let's get into you. So your father has a storied career. He's out there crushing it. What about you? You went to high school, college. How'd you wind up in this wheelhouse?
It's interesting. I wish it was like a point A to point B. I sometimes think that my career would be a little bit further along if I would have just went straight into either computer science or supply chain. However, that's not how life works, especially not how my life works. So instead of doing computer science or supply chain, I went into psychology. I got a bachelor's in psychology. When I was done with that, I decided I didn't want to go the clinical psychologist route. It was too long, too expensive. I just didn't want to do it. So I went to get my master's in social work and graduated with that. Somewhere in between, I would have to look at the timeline between getting my or finishing my bachelor's and getting my master's. I was a freight broker for BNSF. I was working as a undergrad psychology degree holder, making like $17 an hour at a facility once. And one of my best friends was a broker with RNL. I saw how much she was making, or now it's funny, like lack thereof. But
she has a G-Wagon?
No, not quite. So I saw how much she was making at the time, and I found a similar job, which was at BNSF Logistics. I applied for it. I got it. And I was there for about a year. My book of business was heavy produce, all produce almost. I had a customer that shipped like paper towels and paper products. But other than that, it was all produce. That was very stressful. I was a single mom at the time with a 2-year-old. So those like 4 a.m. wake up calls, where's my truck kind of conversation, it wore on me very quickly.
Wait, so that's interesting. So as a broker with BNSF, I imagine, I'm taking this in, and this is for all the listeners out there, I would imagine that you're talking with manufacturers who need to ship stuff by rail.
Nope, they had a logistics division, which was like a separate business entity, and it was simply a brokerage.
Okay, so these basically, so you would get the freight from the rail onto truck then was going. Yeah, break this down because I always, because it's fascinating. People from outside the industry and friends I talk to love, like my friend, some of my friends from home will always just be like, they'll always talk about with traffic and stuff like that. They'll be like, things should just be shipped by train. It's cheaper and this and that. It's just, well, is that train just going to go to your backyard? Is it going to go to it doesn't really, are you going to put tracks through your backyard?
Like Walmart or Target and unload?
Yeah, the train's going to go straight to your neighborhood Walmart.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. No, so there's BNSF, the railroad, of course, and then BNSF had their own like freight brokerage entity. So what we did was, hold on. Okay, help your brother. Thank you. What we did as account managers or as a brokerage, we went out and got customers that needed to ship freight, haul anything, and we went with the truck found capacity to haul that freight, and we were that middle man.
Awesome. No, that's good. It's interesting stuff to know because I had no clue that BNSF was even down that route. But I mean, I'm just a trucker with an opinion. So I mean, I can't you can't fault me for not knowing that. So from BNSF, what was the next path? How come something got you got an itch somewhere. Something got you moving.
Yep. BNSF, I got really burnt out with that produce heavy book of business. I left there, went back to social work. I was working with, it was an incredibly rewarding position, but I was working with young mothers. 95% of them were single mothers, young new mothers. Sorry, there's a lot of details there, but young new mothers, single, that were like by the textbook. Don't like saying this, but they were at risk for their children going into like a foster care or going into like the state's custody and getting their children taken away, for lack of better words. It was incredibly rewarding. I loved working with them. It did not pay very well. Again, very rewarding. I burned out on that a lot quicker than logistics. And this will come next, so I'm not going to get into that yet. But with social work and with what I was doing, there are so many regulations and rules with the government programs that I felt like every time we took like 5 steps forward, or I took 5 steps forward with one of those moms, we ran into a roadblock. If it was like she wasn't approved for this program for like one tiny thing. So we worked all the way up until this point, and then she decides she wants to take the next step and we can't go. And as a very low level social worker, there's nothing I can do for her. We just kind of run into that roadblock, and you still try to be encouraging and still try to push her, but it's really sad. It's devastating, actually. Yeah.
It's
So I had to leave
unfortunate.
there.
It's unfortunate to hear stories like that, because these are people who need the most amount of help, and yet the support systems out there are not supporting the employees who are giving their heart and soul into something. So you're clearly not compensated for what is literally probably what some would call the Lord's work. And then at the same time, yeah, it's almost as if the system's set up to let them fail. Like it's almost set up to,
Absolutely.
it's presented as this pathway towards possibly leveling up. And then when push comes to shove, it's just like, well, they're not I guess it's just not the right fit because of these rules and regulations. So sorry. And then we wonder why the criminal justice system is the way it is, and why this happens, and why people wonder why. And it's like, it's not that there's not inaction. It's just that the actions, the gatekeepers of it set up. I could see how that would drive me up a wall if I was put in a position like that.
Yeah, and I'm a problem solver, and my favorite thing to do, or my favorite part about my job now, is I get to creatively solve problems, and that is one thing that I'm really, really good at. And so with social work and running into all those roadblocks that I couldn't change at the level I was at, it was very frustrating, and I was just angry all the time when I shouldn't have been, because we were doing really great work. Like you said, absolutely, social work is the Lord's work, and it is taking care of people that either they don't have a support system, or they can't take care of themselves, or they don't know how. Like these young mothers, a lot of them didn't have good examples growing up, or a example of a motherly figure, or even a female like strong figure. So just being able to step in and help them, it was amazing, but very, very frustrating.
But yeah, you had to look out for number one. So how'd you get back out?
Yeah, this is the interesting part, and it falls into more of the Lord's work, or the Lord's work for me. I was on LinkedIn one day when I was at BNSF. I had a regional manager, which I don't understand what the region was, because Nashville and Chicago are not in the same region. But anyway, thankfully, he was my regional manager. His name's Jason. He messaged me on LinkedIn and said something along the lines of, "You're probably not looking for a job, but I have an interesting opportunity. Do you want to take a look?" And I was like, sure, why not? And so he sent me a job description for a project manager at this company called Revenova. And I was like, I read over it and it looked interesting, but not really something that I was like, ooh, I want to go do this today. And I really had no idea what Revenova did other than what was on the job description. So I started looking at their LinkedIn. There wasn't really anything there. Looked at their website. It was okay, pretty basic. And so I said, sure. Got on the phone with, or Jason introduced me to Revenova's CEO, Charles, via email. Had a preliminary call, intro interview with Charles, our CEO, over the phone. It went well. I flew up to Chicago, interviewed with everyone that worked at the company at the time. I think there was 12 of them. I was number 13, I believe. I claim 13. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I claim it. And met with everyone, interviewed, left. A couple of weeks later, Revenova offered a job, not the one that I went in applying for, because we realized that there was a need for training and documentation, teaching our customers how to use our product. We noticed the need there, recognized the need while I was in my interview, and so the position was created for a training manager, and I accepted.
And what time frame was this? What year?
This would have been the end of 2019.
2019, and you've been with them ever since.
Mm-hmm. I have. I'm coming up on my 5th year with them.
So this is pre and post. So that's what's actually pretty cool. You've been in logistics pre and post pandemic, and so and you're in the same role today, correct? Like you're the training manager.
Nope. I am now what is my title? Solutions engineer, sales.
That's right.
Engineer. I still do quite a bit of what I did. I had, between being a training manager in my position now, this would be my 4th position. I had 2 promotions before this one. Kind of did the same thing throughout all of them. Got some more responsibilities, got to hand a couple of things off. But this one is almost totally different than what I was doing for the past 4 years.
Awesome. So they're based out of Chicago. Basically, lay it out there. What's the 5-minute elevator pitch for your company?
Absolutely. Way shorter than 5 minutes. Revenova TMS is a transportation management system built on the Salesforce platform. We support all modes across the board: air, rail, ocean, all modes is what I meant to say also. Flatbed, reefer, LTL. Because we're built on the Salesforce platform, it is totally configurable and flexible to the business, which is my favorite part as a solutions engineer, as a creative problem solver. I get to listen to a company tell us their processes, how they do things day in and day out, and help them. I wouldn't use the term like mold the platform or our product to their processes, but help them support those processes using the Salesforce platform and, of course, using Revenova.
No, that's awesome. So basically you sell yourselves and market yourselves to motor carriers, brokerages, everybody.
Yeah, prior to this year, we were strictly brokerage and shipper TMS. And as of a couple of months ago, we released you could call it a dispatch system. We call it fleet operations or fleet management, which supports the trucking company carrier side of the industry and business, which is very exciting for me. I get to talk to carriers or carrier companies in our prospect calls. And a lot of those started out as family businesses, and it's really fun to talk to those people.
No, that's awesome. So kind of going deeper into it, what would you say is like the biggest level of innovation that sets you guys apart from other TMS out there? This is always a big question. Whenever you're talking about it, what kind of sets you guys apart, and how do you play a part in that?
I think it's a couple of things. The first one is we have a phenomenal, I would call it like a base product with Revenova and the Salesforce platform. You could implement or set up a Revenova org today and have your business running tomorrow. We can do that with new freight brokerages every single week. Not tomorrow. If you didn't know, you would want training, of course. Give it like 3 weeks. But you could have your business going in the next few days with Revenova. That's one side. The very base product, phenomenal. And then we have like our enterprise customers who have a tech heavy team or a development heavy team. They take our base product and use it as a building block, and they build out from there. They create their own custom integrations. Again, because we're on the Salesforce platform, there's the open API where they can plug and play any of the other tech companies that we may not have productized yet, or we don't have productized today, and they can go ahead and create those custom API connections, and it's truly a plug and play environment.
That's awesome.
Then,
So
yeah, go ahead.
So especially for a new business coming out, it seems to be something where they can, start operating more efficiently out the gate. Now, say, and this is just me speaking, this is just me like thinking out loud, basically. But say you're already a company with existing software, or you have like these systems in place that are just like essentially like the standard, almost like, you can call it like the New York City subway system, for example. They always talk about how it can't be updated because of the systems in place, or just like the infrastructure wise, it would take like a complete overhaul. Say you got a company out there who has like systems or software in place. Can you integrate what you guys have into that somehow? Or like, what does that kind of look like?
In that instance, and what we've done with other customers, those are typically our enterprise customers, those big freight brokerages or carriers. We work in phases. So at some point, we would want to move all of the business onto or into their Salesforce org. No one really wants to pay for multiple TMSs or multiple like base tech stacks, I should say. But we can start in phases, and moving one section off of, or one division out of a legacy TMS into Revenova is a good start for some of our customers. Others, they just want to do it all at once, like flipping a light switch. So it is, I would say, the most difficult part, absolutely, and the most time consuming, is moving the data, all of the loads, all of the carriers, all of your customers and shipper consignee locations from the legacy TMS, cleaning up that data, getting it formatted, and then inserting or uploading it into the Salesforce org.
So you're able to still leverage that data.
Absolutely.
It's time consuming, but you're still able to do it. No, that's awesome. Kind of, and like, I want to give you and your company the opportunity to kind of beat your own chest. But what's, do you have any testimonials of, some companies you've helped, you've worked with, or just like, basically, or your best Google review? Do you have any like kind of examples of, somebody who was hurting down there? Like, what's one of the biggest successes to kind of come out of your work, and what so many N's, I don't want to mispronounce it. Revenova has been doing.
Yeah, I think one of our biggest success stories would probably be Molo. When they started out, there was 3 or 4 of them, and they were customers until I think the ArcBest acquisition. So that one was like 3 to 4 users to hundreds of users, and they grew their business. Amazing set of people, amazing set of leaders. What I meant, yeah, that would be a big one. We have some customers today that have, I think, more on like the tech side with the tech leaders that I work most closely with. SPI Logistics, I work with Ezekiel very closely, and just to see what he has done. That's SPI is a larger group, of course, and very technologically savvy. Ezekiel has done really awesome things in their org and used Revenova as that foundation, and then built on top of it, and the plug and play. And it's really cool to see the things that he's done in his org.
No, that's awesome. Hearing the success stories is definitely, I think that's most important, is to see like, okay, here's what you're doing, but where have you guys shined going with that? And I mean, obviously we know, logistics is a team game. it requires communication with a lot of different people. I mean, you guys as a company and you personally, are there any key partnerships that you work with, like other people within freight who you consider like essentially like, oh, we wouldn't be doing this without X company? Like, are there any like good like partnerships you guys kind of work with that enhance, what you do?
I think I like all of our partners. We have a lot. We have, I think, over 40 packaged integrations today. So that would be over 40 partners today. There are definitely some that absolutely every one of our customers use, like DAT or Truck Stop Trucker tools. Those are big ones. I think if we didn't have those packaged integrations, we wouldn't have a product that is sellable to our target audience, being freight brokerages, and now carriers. Yeah, and the carrier compliance, the fraud related integrations like RMIS, My Carrier Portal, Highway. Again, without those, it would be very difficult for us to sell a product to, especially now, and the rampant fraud that we're dealing with today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's good to, I think it's good for people to know that, especially if there's anybody out there listening, or there's people who are looking to innovate in the space. Sometimes people will think, or just in general, when it comes to like business in general, people are always just like, oh, I don't want it. Everyone's doing this. There's too many things. Do we need another podcast? Do we need another this? Do people really want it? And the answer needs to always be yes. Like it doesn't matter if somebody else is doing it. And I'm pretty sure Alex Hormozy is talking about this. If somebody else is doing it, it must mean people want it. So it's just, it doesn't matter if somebody else is doing it. It's all the more reason why you should be doing it, because service matters, and differentiation matters. The competition matters. The more competition there is out there among that stuff, it also inevitably will lead to more partnerships in that. And kind of moving forward, what is, speaking of those partnerships and growing in competition, what is the scalability of this? What's the next 5 years looking like? Where do you see Revenova rolling with, headed into, hopefully, we'd like to think, and hopefully the positivity in Atlanta, or hopefully there was some more positivity in Atlanta, about the market and, how things were. What's the next kind of 5 years looking like for you guys, scaling, growing? What's next?
Absolutely. We are certainly growing as a company, on our product development teams, or product and development teams, on our client-facing teams. I don't work as closely with product or development as I once did. So I'm not intimately involved in the product roadmap or what's coming, what's there. It was one thing I had to kind of let go of to move into this role and do well in the role I have now. So what the next 5 years looks like, I'm not really sure. What's really cool about Revenova is, and I think I say it's really cool about Revenova, I think a lot of tech companies in the logistics space do this simply because of our industry and how, I don't really like to use the word volatile, but how quickly we're changing and doing different things. But Revenova, we give a voice to our customers, and me being a social worker, I really, really love that part. But we give them the ability to have a voice in our product roadmap, and the majority of our releases outside of like some governments and new Salesforce enhancements and features that we can take advantage of as a Salesforce application and partner. Other than that, the majority of our roadmap is purely based on what our customers are asking for. So if they're asking for a new partnership or integration with a potential partner, if we're getting many of those requests from our customers, we're going to prioritize that integration and move it up. So while I could lay out like a 5-year roadmap, there may be a new partner. Highway is a perfect example of this. Highway wasn't on the roadmap 5 years ago. And now with all the freight fraud, the theft that we're dealing with, the carriers who say they're carriers and they're really not carriers, Highway quickly became a highly requested integration that we have. So that one's almost done and going to be ready for our customers. to take advantage of package integration with them. So
yeah, Highway came out of, I remember talking with Highway at F3 in the fall, and yeah, because they're very well versed. They know who our boy G-Face is, and G-Face naming his factoring company. And as soon as he heard the factoring company, like off the rip, he knew who it was. They're a great organization, a great outfit there, who's obviously doing some good work. It's an interesting point with freight fraud, because I definitely wanted to touch on that with you in a moment, especially with the market. But and I remember talking about this with Gord, and for any of you guys out there listening, definitely check out Gord's Substack, Autonomous Truckers, and check out his podcast, Voice of Gord. But with companies like Highway and freight fraud, and this is me just also thinking out loud again, it sucks we had to get to the point, or it sucks that the market has gotten to the point where it is with the amount of fraud, where it's great companies like Highway are coming out and are looking to make a change and make things better. But it's almost at the same time where the industry used to operate, especially for your father and grandfather, it did operate off of this level of trust, and there was really these problems of fraud didn't exist, especially pre-1980. They didn't exist, and now we're coming into this age. And I'm not saying that the rise of this technology is bad, but it's just unfortunate that we now have to lean or have another company come in just to because this industry is so, it is, and there's so much technology that's now involved in the industry, where we're not as connected even on the phones, like with the pandemic, with the rise of load boards, like booking loads without even talking to somebody on the phone. Now we need to bridge this trust gap, is to create this another middleman now to eliminate this fraud that we've allowed to enter the market. But you got to play the ball where it lies. That's where we're at. But it's great that you guys are working to do that, because I was actually, those are the next two things I wanted to get on was, number one, what does it look like for your guys' play in the fraud game? So clearly it looks like you're integrating Highway with the TMS, which is pretty much awesome. So it pretty much alleviates, if somebody's using Revenova, they don't have to worry about there's a lot less worry about where their actual freight's go.
Yeah. And that's one of the innovate and integrate things. I don't like the word collaboration. Actually, Carrie Trucker Tools banned it the other day at Freightways, which is funny because I hate that word. But integrate and innovate with our technology partners like Highway, like our Trucker Tools, like Truckstop. We, as a transportation management system, we don't have to worry about building those things out or doing those things, because we have awesome partners that are solely focused on tracking and tracing or carrier vetting, like a Highway or RMIS or My Carrier Packets. So when we bring in all of that data or that information, then our customers have it at their fingertips within the TMS, and they can build rules around it and prevent tendering to certain carriers based on rules. Or there's one aspect in Revenova, when you're searching for a carrier, if that carrier is rejected in your company, it doesn't even come up. So a new user, someone you're newly onboarding, like a carrier sales rep, they wouldn't have the option of finding and selecting that carrier to tender to.
That's awesome. Moving forward with that, I mentioned it's a down, we're in a down market, still in this historic freight recession. What have you guys been doing, leaning on? How have you guys been kind of, we've been seeing bankruptcies, a list of them from trucking companies to digital freight brokerages, everything like that. What's kept you guys going in this down market? Kind of, are you doubling down? How have you guys been like investing and kind of been allocating, surviving, this market? Because everybody's pretty money tight now. When you talk to even the freight tech companies, obviously the motor carriers are out there really hurting with contract rates, and even and I don't know if I had mentioned this on the show, but I was talking about, I have a friend of mine who's still a contractor for a carrier I was that I was working for, Warren Transport, And I mean, my fleet manager last year, when I was asking him about these rates, because we would have weekly phone calls with the VP of the specialized division, and it's combating these rates. And Warren itself didn't really deal with brokers that much. They had a lot of contracts with Deere, with Carrier, but those contracts were still being undercut. And we know that that's like essentially where carriers have been falling behind. But if carriers aren't making money, that means that there's other people losing out on their cut of the pie and have been, sacrificing. Everybody's kind of, doing a nice diagnostic of their financial diets, and they're counting their macros when it comes to their money. So kind of
Yeah.
how have you guys been able to stay dialed in? You mentioned that you're growing. How have you been able to grow, and you're like, where have you been going and hammering down to stay up in this market?
That's a great question. I don't have a good answer for it.
That's
Yeah.
perfectly fine.
I'm not involved in those conversations, but I do have a couple of things on this. You were talking about the freight fraud and the level of trust. When I started at BNSF as a freight broker, I was totally naive that anyone would rip anyone off in logistics or transportation.
Me too, because I'd be like, oh man, they're like especially like me being ignorant. I remember the first time I had hauled a double brokered load when I was a company driver, and I had to say that I was U.S. Express when I checked in at the shipper, and I had no idea why. And when I was talking to my dispatcher about it, he was explaining it to me. I was like, how does nobody? I was like, nobody cares about this. I was like, he's like, and he's just like, oh yeah, it happens all the time. I was like, what? I was like, what? Like it like blew my mind, because I'm like, because the industry is so heavily regulated, and with scale houses, DOT inspections, and this over regulation of carriers and stuff out there, and everything like that. I was just like, it happens all the time. But sorry to cut you off, but I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it blew my mind. I remember, I don't remember who prompted me to ask the driver, but to ask the driver what was on the outside of his truck, like written on the door. And when I asked him, it was not what the dispatcher had gave me. And I was just confused. I had no idea. The freight got there on time. Not advocating for double brokering, but yeah, that was crazy to me. And then I had a number two. Forgot what it was. I don't know.
Yeah, so really, the taking on the bad guys has been a way for Revanova to kind of stay in the game, stay dialed in, ready to rock. And I kind of going with that. Got a lot of respect for your company and what you're doing with them and helping them win, because Revanova winning means brokerages can win. If they win, it means carriers can also win at the same time. Going along with that, what are, just you personally, you're a problem solver, you're involved in this industry, you talk with a lot of people, you engage with a lot of people, other people who are drivers as well. What do you think are some other, you have a father who still drives from time to time. What do you think are some of the like glaring issues in the industry that more people need to be talking about? Like straight up, what's going on, in your mind, where you're like, this is also, besides fraud, like where you're like, we probably need to fix this, just to get it, because we talk about problems on the show, like that's thing. I mentioned it before, like we're going to keep talking about it, because the conversation needs to keep going. We need to manifest solutions to them. This is how it keeps going. What are you seeing on your end where you're like, I don't like this, we should fix it?
Yeah. As the daughter and granddaughter of truck drivers, I have a very soft spot for drivers. When I was a broker, the soft spot was there. I think that we still have a huge issue with respecting our drivers. And if we don't have drivers, we don't have anything. Respecting them, from the parking issues to not being able to use the bathroom at certain facilities, to being kicked out of facilities for asking to use the bathroom, yelling at drivers over the phone. When I was a broker once, one of my favorite customers, produce grocery store, he taught me so much about the business and so much about freight that I just didn't know because I was new and just ignorant of the business. And he called me one morning. It was snowing in Minnesota. I'd sent a driver up from Chicago area to Minnesota overnight. It was snowing. The driver pulled over because it was snowing and he wasn't going to drive in a snowstorm. He had called me that night. It was like midnight when he had pulled over. Customer calls me, asked me where the truck was, and started yelling at me because the truck was going to be late. And I respectfully and calmly told him that I would call him back and once he calmed down, and I hung up on him. And so about 15 minutes later, he called me back and he expressed how much he respected me because I didn't just yell back at him, being the customer, and because I advocated for the truck driver. And then that gave me a moment to explain my driver didn't feel safe driving in the snowstorm, so he pulled over with every other truck on the road. And that's not common. It's not common, I don't think, for a freight broker to advocate for the drivers like that. And maybe it is now. I'm not as close I'm definitely not on the floor at a freight brokerage, so I don't know. But definitely just the respect and the trust in drivers and not having to check on them every 5 minutes.
Yeah, in that respect part definitely goes both ways on that aspect. I think that both sides obviously need to respect each other, or else, yeah, you're just gonna have two screaming. Like if two people are screaming at each other, when has a problem ever gotten solved by two people screaming at each other?
Yeah,
Whether it be, and I've been I don't want to say I've screamed on the phone, but I've definitely gotten stern with waiting at receivers for quite some time. And I've gotten to the point where I've definitely wanted to scream about it. But at the same time, I don't know if that broker was advocating for me, calling the customer, being like, "Hey, why is this guy sitting? What's this guy doing? Shaking down more money." But I'd say you're absolutely right. I think it is rare what your actions were. I think because for the most part, I mean, I get it. I've never been a broker. Maybe I should do it for 6 months. I don't know, just so I can dip my toe and see what it is like, so I can see the other side of the fence. That sort of thing. Get in the arena myself and do some things. But I'd say with how high speed the job is, I mean, a broker, where a single truck owner operator is only you're only hauling one load at a time. Broker could be dealing with possibly dozens of loads moving at a time, and so when one hits you with a snag, human, being a human is going to take over. And when a high stress situation happens, that's where I think some of the anger will definitely come from. And for any driver out there who's just like, well, that driver should have just threw chains on. Me personally, I do not think, like you said with the respect thing, I don't think there's one truck driver out there who gets paid enough to throw chains on a tire. I get it, and I know Gord's would breathe down my neck for it because he did 4 seasons on the ice. He's all about it. And in Canada, it's probably a little bit different. The stuff's probably got to get there. But in the lower 48, if you got to put and I'm just parroting some guys who've been driving for decades. If they're like, if I got to chain it, I ain't moving. And I'm kind of on that page of things too, especially when I was moving open deck. Like you're kind of really playing with fire if you're hauling stuff, if you're oversized and you're going through inclement weather. It's definitely probably not a good idea to do, but that's definitely a good call. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the respect thing. I mean, this is not even in the trucking industry. I mean, this is just this is nation code. In every industry, that respect thing really needs to come back overall. But I appreciate your input on that. The parking is big too. I mean, parking is going to be the glaring issue because I think when it comes to parking in general, that's like the number one no-brainer. Like it's like where pay is difficult to fix because the market is volatile and rates are what they are, and how carriers are paid is that is very difficult now, especially in a post 1980 world. Pay is hard to change because of how contracts work. The parking thing, that's an immediate fix. Oh, it needs to be fixed. Like, let's build the parking. The bathroom thing, the same thing. It's like an immediate fix. Like right there. We talk about, the turnover. We talk about the fake shortage right there. I mean, if in the real world, the non-trucking world, if I was, for example, like I worked at Enterprise Rent a Car for 2 years. If I went to work or if I went to if I went to a body shop, because I used to have to pick up customers at, wherever their car got checked off. If I went to that body shop and I used the bathroom, and that body shop didn't let me use their bathroom because I was an enterprise employee, like people would be floored. Or if I was, say I work for Coca-Cola and I'm going to visit a gas station and they're like, sorry, we're not letting the Coca-Cola employees use the bathroom. It's that level of like prejudice that will never, that like, it's insane that it even exists like in a world like that. And I get it. Trust me. And there's truckers on there on Twitter right now will know. I mean, go to your nearest truck stop. It's not like truckers are doing us any favors, because if you go, we got piss jugs all over the place, and I get it, but you got to 80-20 it for the most part. I mean that or 90-10 it. If 10% of people are leaving piss jugs, you're going to see the piss jugs. They're going to be out there, but it doesn't mean 90% of drivers aren't out there doing the right thing in that aspect. But no, I really appreciate what you're doing. So what about you? We talked about Revanova, their 5 years. You guys, what I love about you said about the 5 years is like that roadmap is you're letting it be dictated by customers. What about you? What projects are you working on? We got a couple minutes left here. What are you trying to, what is Danielle doing that you want people to kind of pay attention to or take note of? And, what are you getting after in the next couple of years?
Well, unintentionally, I have definitely created this personal brand for myself. Totally unintentional. I really just started with taking off like that corporate mask and being more authentic. And I'm always honest in conversations, but I've never been as authentic at the risk of not being professional or like corporate-y, like climbing the ladder type personality. So I've just been building my personal brand. Again, it started out unintentional. Now I am more intentional, but I also just love making the connections. I love having conversations. I love talking to people in the industry. I would say that logistics supply chain is the largest industry, but it is so small. And you have no idea how close you are to someone that you may be wanting to talk to. But having those conversations, mentioning what you're trying to do, what you want to do, that is the most important to get maybe like 2 connections away. Gord is one connection away from whoever it is. Never mind. That would go down a rabbit hole.
No, Gord's 1 degree of separation from Vladimir Putin.
That's what I was trying to get at, and then my brain just went wild. Yeah, I don't really have a roadmap at all either. I don't know. If the reason I say that is because 5 years ago, if you would have told me I would be in this position in logistics at Revanova or in the industry, I would have told you absolutely not. That was silly. I would never leave social work to come to a tech company and use my creative problem solving in this space. So definitely building out my technical skills, definitely continuing to engage in the industry and logistics, meeting new people, getting to know people, growing relationships, and we'll see what comes of it.
No, I'm with you, and it's good that you're saying that. The more because that's it, like when you think about that time thing. 5 years ago, I was still overweight, working in a warehouse, driving a forklift. And if you were going to tell me that I'd be, training for Ironman events, and trying to change the culture of health and wellness and in an entire industry who's suffering, I would have literally like laughed you to the bank if that would have been the case. And yeah, it's definitely, you're somebody who hasn't stopped betting on themselves. You've done some tough work. I mean, like with working with those single moms and helping those people out, and now you're just still trying to help an industry. Give you big ups to you on that. Before we sign off, where can the people find you? Where can people? You said keep having conversations with people. Where can people come find and have a conversation with you?
Absolutely, on every social media platform possible. I think my handle or my tag is maybe Danielle, DANIELL 3 E's, E-E-E. So that's where I
Terrific.
am everywhere. Or Danielle Chaffin. Yeah, 3. And
Triple E.
that's specifically for Dale Earnhardt.
That's good. Boom, dude. Raise hell. That's right.
Yeah. Well,
Raise
I
hell.
tried 2 and it went through, and I was like, what about 3? Because 3 for Dale, and then 3 worked. So I was like, oh, that's it.
We're gonna have to run it with that. But no, I appreciate you coming on. Would love to have you come on again in the future too. We'll get some topics. I'd love to get a roundtable with you and some other people.
Yeah, I want to talk health too. I was in bodybuilding for quite some time.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're on a time crunch, but we're gonna talk offline. Let's get back into this because I'd love to keep this conversation rolling especially into that bodybuilding aspect, because I'm not just talking about changing the culture of health and wellness for just drivers. This is the industry as a whole, because the industry is sedentary, high stress, on the phones, and this is drivers, brokerage, people who are on forklifts, people. We're talking about the entire supply chain. And so we're gonna get back on, and we're gonna talk fitness. We can bring a couple other people on the show too, and we can Jim Bro it out for a little bit and talk about kind of ways you're staying in shape, how you're staying healthy, what brokers can do. We can come at it from a different perspective. So great way to tee that up for the end of the show. But again, I want to thank you for coming on. You guys know where to find her. I'm gonna bump you out real quick, and then just hang out for a few minutes. We're gonna walk this one out. But,
thanks for having me.
Absolutely, and we'll be doing this again soon. Guys, thank you once again, all you guys live out there listening on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. Really appreciate you coming out for that awesome conversation. Danielle is a trailblazer in this industry. And as somebody who just decided to emerge, come on the scene, be like, I'm going to be me, and have conversations with people, and is steamrolling ahead into this. Wise beyond her years, without a doubt. That's why I went with that nickname, Athena. You didn't know, goddess of wisdom. Look it up. That's what it is. If you notice the trend, problem solvers. That's who we have on the show, having conversations. Okay, we're not coming up with any solutions off the rip. That's not how it works. But you have to, once again, talk about manifesting on the show. That's what you got to do, is you have to keep having these conversations, drive the conversation forward instead of going backwards. Appreciate you, Robert, for tuning in up at the end. Robert Bain, strongest man in logistics. He's the strongest man in logistics. But again, am I the fastest? Up for debate. We'll have to see. But other than that, once again, more to come in the future. Got a lot of great announcements, a lot of great guests coming on. If you're a driver out there, especially a truck driver, we're looking to have more drivers and your stories out there to keep talking about these problems and to keep talking about what we're doing with Reefs Across America. Again, if you'd like to donate to Reefs Across America as I train for 7.3 and the full Ironman Texas next April, you can go to www.reefsacrossamerica.org/Lombard. One wreath is $17. We're looking for a great event this December at Arlington Cemetery. But with that, guys, that'll do it. Episode 116. Count it in the books. We're going back to the bench. Take care.